Hello, hello. Oh, not quite yet. Uh, hello, hello, everyone. Hello. Happy Monday. Happy Monday, right before the elections in the United States. Yeah, we are feeling it. For those of you who are, I've seen so many posts online about folks from other parts of the world watching what's happening here. And sending, like, they're worried. They're worried about us. We're worried too. Well, we'll see what happens, right? So welcome. I am super glad if you are catching this live or if you are catching this on the replay. I'm super glad that you are here today. Um, I'm going to talk about intuition, and I want to share with you that I am starting an intuitive support circle that goes from November 6th, which is this Wednesday, until January 1st. And the intent of this circle is really to provide a safe space for you to just explore your intuition, to learn how to navigate what could be a very challenging time of the year, so that you can stay in alignment with your intuitive nature. And part of that experience is creating boundaries, like learning to create and be comfortable with ensuring that you maintain those boundaries, like getting in the place of comfort around putting yourself first. And that can be incredibly challenging, especially if you've never done that before. Because in essence, what's happening is that you are changing the dance. You're changing the experiences or the ways by which you engage with others. And if there's a little bit of a rub in your family, and maybe there are expectations of you that as you have grown and learned and developed a stronger sense of awareness of who you truly are, there's this need that comes with it sometimes about establishing boundaries, about really starting to put yourself first, because you start to recognize what your needs are. There is no one that I know who has been on this really in-depth exploration of spirituality and how it kind of merges with our healing process, where boundaries do not come into play, because a lot of us respond based on our prior experiences and relationships that we have with others. And those relationships that we have with others, sometimes we have adapted based on what they expected of us. And as you start to really develop an awareness of your essential nature, there's like this intuitive need to start to put yourself first, to start to say no, even if your natural inclination is to say yes because it's the pattern you've always had. And so I think that this time of year can be very trying. And this is why I created an intuitive support circle where we meet on Wednesdays. And I am here to provide support around boundaries. We're going to practice how to actually engage in difficult conversations. I think it's a fabulous thing to say I'm creating boundaries, but most people don't know the language to actually say the words that don't shut people down. That's the challenge. It's like you can say no and you can say, yeah, I'm not doing that. But in that exchange, you may shut down a relationship or create kind of a worse situation just simply because you didn't have the language and how to establish that boundary. I see that in the workforce. I see that in personal lives. It's one of those things we don't talk enough about. So we're going to practice some of those things in this intuitive support circle. And I'm also going to provide weekly mini readings for anyone who is a part of this circle. I try to keep my circles a bit small, just so that we can ensure that each person gets this connection, and so that you feel seen and heard. That's a really important part of what I do when I form communities that support one another. Okay, so as I get started, let me know if you are watching me live. I'm seeing lots of notifications going off here. Let me know if you are watching me live. I'd love to just connect with you. Tell me where you are coming in from. Um, so what I'm going to talk about today. Hi, Stephanie. Yay, so glad you're here. Hi, Pam. What I'm going to talk about today is our inner guidance. Okay. And we're going to explore a little bit about what happens, particularly when we become stressed and overwhelmed, which often happens around this holiday season, doesn't it? Even in the best of situations, it is so easy to feel overwhelmed, or where we don't quite put ourselves first. And maybe you've been working on that. Maybe you've been working about speaking your truth. Maybe you've been working about setting some time aside to meditate, or just quiet contemplation, or walking and doing some deep breathing as you're walking. There are lots of ways that we can intentionally connect with ourselves. And maybe you've been doing that or been working on doing that, right? And then the holiday season comes, and it's just a big rigmarole that happens. And it's hard sometimes to not get overwhelmed. So this is why I and this is the first time I've ever done this time of year. No, that's not true. I do this for people this time of year, but I've never done it formally, because I get so many people who do feel very disconnected, still trying to stay connected to their family and the events that are happening. But because they're in survival mode, they feel very disconnected from the experience and, of course, overwhelmed. So let's talk a little bit about what happens. What happens when we become a little bit overwhelmed with all of the things that are happening. And I said this in my last session that I did on last Friday on boundaries, that overwhelm sometimes is our constant state, right? Like even just with life, we experience a lot of overwhelm. So when we have lots of things happening, from family to work to social obligations, what happens is it drains us emotionally, right? And our mental energy also gets taxed. I will tell you, this idea of mental load, seriously, mental load. How many of us are carrying so much in our minds? Like just carrying so much. And it's the small things too. It's not the big things. It's like I've got to move the clothes from the washer to the dryer. I need to make sure that I make that phone call to schedule that appointment. I need to make sure to get some onions because I was going to make this dinner and I didn't have the onions, and so I've got to stop at the store to do that. There's just so much in terms of mental load that we carry from day to day to day. If you have children, that's a whole nother level of mental load, remembering all the things that they need just to get out the door, and then the things that they need for all the things that come after school. There's just so much. And I don't think we ever really think about that. I don't think, I mean, I know I think about it because I look at my husband and I'm like, how much do you have going on in your mental load? I think a lot of us can speak to that, right? Where we just take this on. Um, I'm going to tell you a quick story. My daughter's an artist, and she recently was in a chalk in the park. So they make these beautiful pictures out of chalk at this park, and it's a thing that's done once a year. And her school is competing against the other schools. Well, I love the directors of her art program. I love them, love them. They're two men. Okay. Last time they did this, I got there. I dropped her off early in the morning because you got to start early. It's an all-day event. They're on their knees there, and it was in April. In Arizona, or at least where I live in Arizona, it is like 100 degrees in April at least. Okay, they're on their knees doing this chalk art. There was no water. There was no food. said to the director where I found him walking around in the park, I'm like, is anyone going to feed the kids? And he's like, oh, yeah, we need to do that. I was like, oh my God, like, are we going to do anything for these kids? And so it occurred to me that, like we are so accustomed to just having to pack for ourselves, pack for the children, figure out how we're going to eat, when we're going to eat, what snacks do we need to take. I mean, that's just a natural part of how we exist. And so it happened this weekend again, and I had the ice chest. I had ordered pizzas. I had all the snacks. I had the tablecloth, that, all for the tables. It's just like, I can't, I felt like they were dumped at the park with a spoon and some chalk or like survive, figure out how to survive, right? And so I don't think we understand until we step back a moment and recognize how much we are carrying from day to day to day. And it astounds me that we don't actually say, you know what, I need to go ahead and push pause and not feel guilty about this. Like, it's okay for me to sit down and rest and relax. It's okay for me to do that. But how many of us grew up in a home where when we sat down and relaxed, there was always something we could be doing? Don't ever say the words that you were bored, because I'll give you something to, it's like, I'll give you something to do. There's tons that you can do. And then we don't know how to just sit down and be. We just don't know how to sit down and be. So this time of year adds on to the already overwhelmingness of life, right? And then what happens is sometimes we tend to disconnect from our highest self and our intuitive wisdom because we go into survival mode. See, you cannot connect to your highest self, all that is, your intuitive nature. I have lots of names. We have lots and lots of names for source, for the oneness that we are. Okay. In order to align with that truth of who we are, you have to be present. You can't be worried about the future. You can't be thinking about all the things that you could have, should have done. You have to be fully present, because it's in this space, the noticing what is happening in front of us and being wholly and completely here, where our personal power lies. But when we are in this state of planning and planning and planning and reflecting, and there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes what we carry along with that past stuff is a lot of guilt and the shouldas, right? And so when we're doing that mess, we're not able to actually create the experiences that are our inherent right. That is just who we are. We are love. We are happiness. We are peace, but not around the holiday season. In the holiday season, it's chaos on top of chaos, right? Do you feel that? Because I know I can feel that. I definitely feel that. So what happens, right? We feel ungrounded is a big one. And for me, because my stress, my survival mechanisms and the way that my body responds to like extreme stress is disassociation. I just disassociate. And it's what I did to survive my childhood. I floated on top of myself. I could watch myself moving through the day, and I couldn't bring myself back into my body for many years in my childhood. That's how I survived. And so when I am in a situation where I'm not on top of it, and what I mean by on top of it, usually I can recognize it, and I just can navigate through the experience by deep breathing, by getting present, by being curious about it, by noticing the sensations of my body. Like, I can totally navigate that. But once in a while, I get slammed by a two by four, and my body goes into this reactive state, and I disassociate, because that's the way that I survive. And so many folks, many of you may be in a constant state of survival, a constant state of feeling overwhelmed and ungrounded. And you might etch out just a little bit of time each day. And you go, you know what? Every day in the morning between 8 and 8:30, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do quiet contemplation. I'm going to journal. I'm going to deep breathe. I'm going to do all of these things. But the hours surrounding that, I'm going to just survive. That's all the things I got to do in life. And I ain't got no time to be fully present because I feel like I'm just needing to get things done. Okay. Do you understand? Does anyone understand what I'm saying when I'm talking about this stuff? Because I think it's very, very common and we don't even think twice about it. It's just how we get through our experiences. So, for this reason, I created this intuitive circle. And I want to create a safe space for people to be able to, number one, I'm going to say this again, navigate through the holiday season to really reflect upon some of the patterns that you have experienced for many, many years. Explore ways to establish boundaries and say no, because there are lots of ways to say no. That isn't a flat out no, but can be very, very assertive. How to keep those promises to yourself when you say no, that you mean it and that you're going to put yourself first, even if other people are uncomfortable, because when you're changing the dance, it does make other people uncomfortable. So I'm going to help you in this intuitive group with the language, because I think the language is critically important. Most of us do not have the language that helps us navigate through those difficult experiences. And it makes the situation oftentimes harder, and with more hurt feelings. And it's harder to recover from that. It's harder to mend a relationship when things have been said and you can't pull them back in. So it's an art. Be communicating your boundaries is an art. And that's something that we are going to practice in this intuitive circle. Okay. All right. So let's talk about intuition. So if you've never seen me before, I want to just tell you who I am. Those of you who know who I am, just ride this ride with me, please. I am Dr. Isela Garcia. I'm I'm an intuitive trauma healing guide. I am a psychic medium. I am a spiritual teacher. Those are the things that I do. I have a long history working with people. I have worked primarily with children and with the adults who serve children and the families of the children. And so my focus has been a lot on understanding human behavior, the impact of trauma. But the thing that makes me different than other people is I can tap into your soul's coding system. I can tap into the reasons why you decided to come back into form, into this, why you chose this body, you came back into form, and what it is that you intended to do in this sacred journey. Okay. Now, our ultimate intent, all of us, our intention is to get in alignment with our truest, highest selves. It's to understand our essential nature. Now, I just watched some guy who I think is amazing, and I forget what what platform it was, but he had made a comment about, we aren't truly who we think we are. And yeah, at the deepest level, we aren't who we truly think. We aren't who we think we are is actually very accurate. I am the persona Isela who showed up. I am an aspect of God, however. And so I am having this human experience with just unique everything, right? Unique childhood, unique experiences throughout my life. And that frames how I make meaning of the world that I am in. Okay. Whole nother topic, whole nother experience. But I want you to know, if you are thinking about joining this intuitive circle, yeah, we get woo woo because we have to understand the experiences that we are having in form and who we are beyond this time and space, because we can understand, if we can understand and really lean into the who we are beyond this time and space, tapping into your intuition becomes much easier, because you recognize, as a person in form here that's having a horrible time at this, that, or the other, it's a temporary experience, and that you have a power, a source beyond what we can just understand in our human brain. We have a force that we can align with and create the experiences we want to see, that we want to have. Okay. So it's important for us to all recognize that this intuitive circle really speaks to that. So it's not just I'm getting through the holidays, but I'm getting through the holidays and I have divine source, an intuitive knowing that is accessible to me at any time, at any time. And sometimes we get so caught up in the human experience and we think it's the end all be all, and it's not. It's a temporary experience and that we signed up for. You signed up for this shit. I signed up for this shit at this moment, in this time, in the way that the world is sort of happening, right? I could go on about all of that, but I won't. All of the things that are happening in the world right now, we signed up for this. Okay. So if we can recognize that truth, it becomes easier to navigate through the hard times in our lives. Okay. Intuition is, your intuition is there. It's always been there. It will never go away. The key is you have to learn how to tap into it and trust it. Okay. But I want to talk a little bit about intuition because I think there's a lot of mixed up beliefs about intuition. Okay. So there's this thing called neuroception, and I think it's really important for us to understand neuroception. Okay. Our neuroception is basically our nervous system constantly scanning our environment for cues of safety or danger. Okay. It's like, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? It's happening at a very, very fast rate. We don't even know that it's happening. It's just happening. It's like when you've got your computer with all the tabs open, things are running in the background. That's running in the background. Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Okay. And so neuroception is often what triggers us when we have that gut feeling, when we have just this gut knowing, this gut feeling that we have, right? I'm going to tell you a quick story. I was just thinking about this the other day. When I was a teacher, and I was probably 19 at the time. I was a teacher. I was a preschool teacher, and there was a stepdad who used to come in and pick up his stepson every day, most days of the week. But what he used to do is he would come in and he would play outside with the kids. And he would run around and he was very playful with them. And there was something inside of me by the way that he played and by what he did and how he said it, how he engaged with the children, that I was like, whoa, there's something not quite right. And my instinct, that a lot of us have felt that at some point or another, have kind of had that like, feeling, right? Like there's something not quite right. And so I had a conversation with him. And you kind of remember, I was like 19. I think about that now and I'm like, holy shit, that's pretty good. But I remember having a conversation with him and telling him that it was really important for him that I really wanted him to just pick up his son, and that, the playing outside, sometimes I think I created something like disrupted the flow of the day. We want to make sure that we're able to transition kids back inside. I'm sure I said some shit like that, but it was because I had a gut feeling. Okay. We get those gut feelings. And I'm not saying not to listen to those gut feelings, because very often we are right on about those types of things. Okay. And it turns out, I find out like about a year later, yeah, I was right on about that. So I have no regrets about saying something. Okay. But we have to recognize that our experiences in our life shape kind of the lens of how we experience the world, how we see the world, how we make sense of it. Okay. There was a question on social media recently that said, if you had to leave your daughter in the forest alone, not alone, if you had to leave your daughter in the forest and your only two options to leave your daughter with was a man or a bear, who would you leave your daughter with? that kind of blew up the internet, the conversations around this, because a lot of women said the bear, definitely the bear. And so there was a lot of dialogue around why would we say that? Well, that's because of our personal experiences. It's because of our personal experiences. We cannot dismiss that. And so sometimes what happens is that if we've experienced trauma, it basically primes the nervous system to be on high alert. And then we become hyper vigilant, where we are constantly scanning for threats, even in seemingly safe spaces. Okay, do you get that? Remember how before I said, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Which is different from where's the threat? Where's the threat? Where's the threat? Okay, so we have this heightened sensitivity that's formed when there really is no need for that. Okay? Sometimes what happens too is it becomes distorted. It can twist our perception of safety. This can mean feeling unsafe in safe situations or perceiving a threat when there is none. And so sometimes our reactions don't actually match the circumstance. And so, quick story for that. Um, those of you who know me know my trauma comes from my mom. Not she's not just that's not all my trauma. I wish it was, but there was more. But the bulk of the trauma was my relationship with my mom. And so when I became a grown up, I went looking, and this was all unconscious. Like I wasn't even aware of it. But I sought out women that I could connect with, feel safe with, rely on. And basically, in some ways, was looking for a mom. And, a lot of my friends were like 20 years older than me, women friends, because they provided that for me. They provided the guidance that I didn't have. Now, having said that, it was a good thing, I think, in a lot of ways, and they nurtured and supported me and helped me see the potential that I had and all the possible experiences I could have in life. They were instrumental in my adulthood. But I also was very mistrusting of women. So when I worked with women, I was mistrusting of them, particular women that were similar to my mom. Right away, I was mistrusting. Right away, I was like, oh, there's an ulterior motive there. Like she's not honest. I'm waiting for her to snap, right? So that's based on my own perception. And now, as I'm able to reflect, or as time went on, I could go, oh, she's different than I had anticipated. She was different than I thought she was. What I thought she was going to do and say did not happen. That comes from me. That comes from me. So it's important for us to recognize, and this is why healing is so important, because we start to unlayer some of these things that have shaped how we make sense of things, and we call it our intuition. Now, I'm going to tell you, we do have a gut, this neuroception, we do have a gut instinct about things, but when I'm talking about intuition, I'm talking about your intuitive wisdom that goes beyond our form, that goes beyond the human experience. Okay. So I like to think of it in levels, because I don't want to deny the fact, you meet somebody and you get that, oh, that just did not feel right. Or you see something out happening, at the grocery store, and you're like, oh, that interaction does not feel right. Act on it. If you feel like you need to act on it. I'm not saying to ignore those things, but I want to be very clear that when I talk about intuition, I'm talking about your divine intuitive nature, the truth of who you are. That's what I'm talking about. Okay? So, just to make that clear, okay? All right. So, any questions or reflections before I keep going? Hi, Suzanne. All righty. So let's do a couple different. I'm going to talk a little bit about grounding, and I want to just share. Hi, Lisa. Yay! I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about grounding. Okay. Now, if you've been doing this spiritual work for a little while, you have heard lots and lots and lots and lots about grounding. But I want to share with you a strategy and for breathing. Okay. Now, one of these strategies is, well, let me just kind of show you. So, back in your throat, you have something that's called a glottis. Okay. And when you breathe, like I'm going to kind of demonstrate here, if you had a mirror in front of you, or even your glasses, back in the day before we had all this fancy like microfiber, we used to go, does anyone still do that? Oh, hold on. So that kind of sound that comes from the back of your throat, imagine that you're holding a mirror in front of you like that. Okay. When you exhale your breath, if you can actually activate the back part of your throat, what that does is it actually stimulates your vagus nerve. Now, your vagus nerve is a nerve. It's not your biggest nerve. The sciatica is actually the biggest nerve, but the vagus nerve runs from your brain stem through the neck and the thorax to your gastrointestinal system. And it's pretty important because it carries signals between the brain, the heart, the digestive system, and it helps control lots of functions like our breathing, our heart rate, and our digestive system. Okay. So it's pretty significant when it comes to our nervous system. We have the power. We have the power to activate our vagus nerve in order to calm our nervous system when we feel dysregulated. And our glottis kind of helps us do that because when we can activate it, like make that sound like that. What it does is it vibrates against the vagus nerve, and it can help when we feel dysregulated. Okay. Now the key is to catch when you're starting to move into the space of dysregulation, because sometimes we're so far in it that it's really hard to pull ourselves back out of it. Right. So when you're activated, sometimes it's just the process of moving through the activated experience. Now, if you can catch it before, even when you're activated, and you can kind of tap in a little bit and go, this would be a really good thing to do. But ideally, you start to just catch it right before you start to move into overwhelm. Okay. So this breathing technique that I'm going to share with you, we're going to inhale, and I'm not going to count. Okay. So I'm not going to count. You're just going to inhale until your belly is full, your chest is full, and what feels comfortable for you. On the exhale, you can do one of two things. You can breathe like I shared with you. We're going to do this initially because it's a practice that just takes practice. So you're going to, okay, or keep your mouth closed. You probably couldn't hear that, but it's keeping your mouth closed. It's exhaling and vibrating the back of your throat. And what that does, again, it's vibrating against your vagus nerve. And if you're in a dysregulated state, it can help you move back into a space of regulation. Okay. All right. So here's one more thing that I'm going to tell you. When you are doing this breathing, I want you to try to put a smile on your face, just a small smile like that, just a small smile. And the reason is because there's this thing that happens, like we're in a shitstorm. And if you have the power in the shitstorm to just notice what you're grateful for. And I'm not saying to ignore the shitstorm. Like, there are reasons why we're having emotional experiences, right? There are reasons, and we need to embrace those reasons, because our role in this lifetime is not to be kumbayaing and happy all the time. We signed up to have the whole gamut of emotions. The key is to learn to navigate. The key is learn to ride the waves. The key is to know that you have the ability to pull yourself back in whenever you need to, right? And that you do have a choice. You do have a choice in how you want to feel, and you can align with your highest self in order to do that. Okay. But what happens is sometimes it becomes difficult for us. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I've just heard something. I'm going to stop there for a second. Okay. All right. So let's do this breathing piece, and then I'm going to integrate that part in. I just heard, sorry, I work with Archangel Raphael and Archangel Michael when I do these lives. And so sometimes I get nudged, and I just have to kind of listen to those whispers of the universe. So I'm going to pause right there, and we're going to go ahead and do the breathing piece. Okay. But what they want me to tell you is that when we are able to really tap into what we are grateful for the gratitude that we are experiencing, it's not only something that happens within us, but it's a message to the universe. It's a sending out a vibrational frequency that all is well. So when we can, because lots of things happen when we smile, even when we're in a shitstorm, believe it or not, when we smile, chemicals release in our body. And what happens is energetically, our frequency will change. And the alignment to that frequency is what is naturally occurring. Okay. That just happens. Whatever you're vibrating at, the universe matches. It's just what happens. Okay. And so when you smile just slightly, it's sending that vibrational frequency that all is well. Okay. All right. So let's do this. So put your feet on the floor. And what I'd like for you to do, we're just going to practice. We're going to inhale, and then you're going to breathe out, trying to vibrate the back of your throat. Okay. So let's go. And I'm not going to count. You just do it to where it's comfortable for you. Here we go. Again. And end with a smile. What I like to do is alternate between mouth open and mouth closed. When I have my mouth closed on the exhale, it vibrates more than with my mouth open. It's a very, very powerful breath. Okay, it's very powerful. The inhale, and you can pause if you want. I just sometimes choose not to. I inhale, I exhale, again, stimulating the back of my throat, or vibrating the back of my throat to stimulate my vagus nerve. And then I put a smile on my face. Okay. It's a really good way to help get back into a regulated state, so your nervous system isn't freaking out. Okay. All right. So another strategy that you probably have tried before, but we just don't do it consistently, is to do an intuitive check-in. Like, literally do an intuitive check-in. So what that is you've got to get quiet for this. And for some of us, that can be very, very challenging. Sometimes getting quiet might be on a walk. So you don't have to be physically still. There's so many misconceptions about the ways that we can tap into our intuition. There are gurus that say you have to sit a particular way and breathe a particular way, and you have to do it for X number of minutes, and without music or with music or guided or not guided. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. You have to learn how to tap into your what works for you, your own intuition, what works for you. Okay. And so what you're going to do is get quiet in any way that looks like for you. And it could be right even before you get out of bed. Okay. And then I want you to imagine a light. Okay. So this might be if you are attuned to your third eye, if you can kind of tap into your third eye. If you're not, just do this in your imagination because your imagination is the gateway to your intuition. Okay. So imagination, this is why we got to let kids play when they're little. Like just play, not they don't need to have things with electronics and batteries and all that stuff that entertain them. They need play because pretend play really taps into the imagination that we are all born with. Okay. So imagination is your key to your intuition. So imagine in your mind's eye, okay, a light, and identify what color of light this is. So what do you see? Do you see a white light, purple light, pink light? And I want you to imagine this light coming from above in the heavens and just sliding all the way down over your body. And it's engulfing you, it's protecting you, it's keeping you safe. All the way down to where your body meets the chair, your feet touches the floor. Just imagine this light. And once you get into this space, you can ask a couple questions. You can ask, what message do you have for me? You can ask a specific question, something that you might be experiencing. Maybe you are seeking guidance. When you are in this bubbled light, it's important to also stay connected to your physical form. Sometimes what happens is we slip up into this, the energy of the light, but our form informs us whether we might be getting in the way of the message or if we're hearing the message correctly. This takes practice, a lot of practice. Okay. And so, what I would suggest to do as you do this bubble of light and ask for intuitive guidance, you can actually, just depending on where your comfort level is, you can actually align, like see yourself in this intuitive light. And I don't mean the Isela self, the persona self, you beyond form self. And you can just imagine what that looks like. Imagine what that feels like. The power, the love, the happiness, the peace, just radiating out and all around you, and ask for the intuitive guidance. If you do not trust that you can discern between what's being shared with you, because we're getting intuitive hits all the time, whether we listen to them or trust them is a whole different story. So what you do is you just allow yourself, like get a pen and paper or an audio record and just let information come through you. Don't judge it, don't question it, don't don't censor it. You just want, excuse me, you want to develop this trusting experience. This, this, like I'm going to receive the message and I'm willing to trust what's being said to me. Okay. I will tell you that it gets easier as you practice this to discern. Remember that whole I was talking about feeling into your body? It's like you got to feel into you have to know what your sensations are in your body. If you get a little bit of stomach churning, maybe for you that means that there's some discomfort there. That's an anxious feeling. If your shoulders go up while you're having this experience, maybe you're a little afraid. We all have different ways that our bodies communicate with us, and we can't dismiss that because that's part of how we learn to discern between the messages that are coming through, whether they're ours, like persona Isella, the ego saying, hello, I'm still here, or is it your divine wisdom coming through? Okay. Now let's go back to what we were talking about before, the holiday season, right? Like just tapping into our intuition. Like, what messages do you have for me? What should I know about this? I was asked to host a Christmas exchange, and I said yes. Did I really mean yes? Just spending the time connecting to yourself and your whole self, the self that of all that is, and the self here in your persona, like connecting to that and understanding, what is it that I really want? What is it that works for me? What is it that I need? And for a lot of us, we've kind of set that to the side and we've put everybody else's needs first. So practice the process of just taking time. And we can do this in the Intuitive Circle group too. And that's the other thing about the Intuitive Circle group, that any group that I form is a divinely guided group. And so what I mean by that is, if a person in the group needs something, I trust that the angels and guides who I work with, intentionally work with, will provide guidance to support that individual person. So as much as I like to plan things out, they don't always it doesn't always show up that way, because our needs when we come together as a community changes day to day. Each time we meet, our needs might change based on our own personal experiences of life. Okay. All righty. So part of this intuitive experience is really helping us learn how to align. And as I mentioned before, aligning with our divine wisdom means that we have to have the skill set to create boundaries, to be able to say what we need, say what we want in a way that I believe is respectfully responsive to the other person's perspectives, ideas, and beliefs. And sometimes you just have to be an ass. Sometimes you just have to say, listen, I'm not going to do this anymore. Right? Like, there are some people that you're going to have to do that. But I work really, really hard at connecting with people at the level of from the space of love. And if I can say it in a way that honors what I need and yet extend love, that's what I'm going to do. So that just takes practice. There are lots of ways to say no without actually saying the words no. And so, yeah, that's some of my examples of what to do to tap into your intuition and how it connects to boundaries. Any questions, any thoughts, any reflections? And I want to remind you all that my intuitive support circle begins on Wednesday. You have a choice between 10 o'clock Mountain Time or 5 o'clock Mountain Time, or both. If you wanted to do both, you could. I'm going to be doing these types of experiences where we're going to practice some breathing. We're going to practice our intuition. We are tapping into our intuition and trusting that. We are definitely going to practice. We're going to do some role playing around the language we use, because I think that that's what's critically important. And more than anything, it's a safe space for you to share some of the challenges that you might be experiencing, whether it be with family or friends. Okay, we're that space where you can share as much as you would like to share. You're never pushed to share more than you want. And I will be providing intuitive readings, sometimes mediumship. It's just going to depend on what Spirit says. Sometimes I get husbands or sisters or mothers or fathers who've passed away who are very insistent on coming in. And so I leave space for that to happen as well. Okay. All right. So you're welcome, Lisa. Breathing with a smile is really good. There's something pretty powerful about that. So yeah, I think it's a really good thing to include. Even when you're doing other breath work, just add that little smile. I think it's pretty magical. All right. And I was going to drop in and I forgot to drop in, but I will go back and drop in the link for the Intuitive Support Circle if you would like to join. So thank you all very, very much. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. I think I might pop on either today or tomorrow and do some readings. Not readings, but like a general card pull. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, this might be the first Wednesday of the month, which means that I have I have to figure out what I'm going to do about that. I'll let you guys know what I'm going to do about that in our group. All right, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.